Oh, hi there. My name's Nathaniel. I would like to formally announce my 2016 presidential candidacy. And the party I'm running for is Reunion. Now, for those of you who might asking, what is Reunion? Well, Reunion is a group, or an organization, if you will, of a few close-knit friends of mine. And basically our goal is to better ourselves and better those around us, with the end goal of being spiritual enlightenment and equality. Now let's take a moment to introduce everyone. As you know, I am Nathaniel. This is
Raven.
And I'm Jared. And welcome back to Full Circle. We are glad you guys are joining us once again. And today's topic is astrology. So we are leapfrogging from space right into astrology. I feel it's an easy segue, and it's a very spiritual one too, as we begin sort of our spiritual journey, taking our first footsteps into some deep conversations.
Baby steps. Baby steps. Baby steps. I mean, we touched it a little bit in the last episode, if you were willing or not to hear those messages. But, you know, everything, I like to think of everything in every moment of every day is actually a spiritual experience. Right now is a spiritual experience. Right now, what you just watching this is actually a spiritual experience. It's just all one big experience as a whole that you find yourself watching this video right now. So where do you want to segue from here? Do you want to talk about our signs, maybe? We'll start with each one of our zodiacs.
Well, basically, the principle of astrology, it takes it farther than just basic astronomy with that mapping out the stars and everything like that. It goes a little bit further. It goes into spiritual concepts, different astronomical formations, constellations, what the spiritual meaning is behind it. Each one has a different meaning. Each one is a different zodiac, and each zodiac is attributed to a different time in Earth's calendar. So based on
the lunar cycle,
based on our cycle, there are different constellations at different points in the sky, and people born under a certain zodiac or during a time when that said constellation is at a certain point, you're of that zodiac, and you're said to have these certain traits. And they're pretty striking how similar they can be, and even other astrological principles, how they relate to our lives, our daily lives. You know, how horoscopes, they're not really as accurate, but
well, a lot of them are generic.
A lot of them are generic, but if you dive further into like the deepest principles of the zodiac, you start to see that things are actually connected, and that people are, connected in this way.
Well, because for a very long time, almost all of humanity's recorded history and unrecorded history, this has been the key figure of science. It's only a very recent divorce where astronomy has been cast away with a lot of other sciences too, like consciousness, astral projecting, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And when this really happened was during the scientific revolution, actually. And during the scientific revolution, what happened was basically we realized, hey, maybe the church isn't always the right answer, which is a great thing. It's very important for us to have, in a sense, a right-brain society where we're very analytical, so we can get to certain answers and certain questions to bring up our lifestyle, basically, our way of living. And but a lot of things we threw out then that we really shouldn't have thrown out. Whether this be the concept of consciousness, like I said, astral projecting, spirituality as a whole. It's basically almost a taboo to talk about. And the reason why science, even though science has demonstrated a lot of these things to be true, such as consciousness and everything like that, we still almost taboo to talk about, because for the past 200 years, that's just the way it is, which is not a good enough reason. It's not a good enough reason for us to not to be able to talk about it. It's just because that's just the way it is. That's an inhibitor to progress.
And I want to inject something about what you just said there, about the divorce between astronomy and astrology, how astrology was like the oldest science in the book, and then all of a sudden we have astronomy.
All the ancient religions, Egyptian, Sumerian, Indian.
Think about the root words behind it. What is biology? The study of life. What is astrology? The study of the stars. But we call it astronomy now. We have to separate it from astrology. We've taken on a new name for a similar concept with less spiritual meaning. And as you said, it's good to be a more right-brained, incorporate that in the society, but it's almost cancerous, pardon the pun, to just completely separate the two.
No, it's you can't ignore the whole truth. That's the entire thing. You have to be able to look at both sides of it, and from I don't want to say an analytical approach, which is the benefit of the right brain society, to be able to look, hey, what information is actually factual, and which is just disinformation or BS. Yeah. So I guess we'll go around and discuss what each one of our signs are.
I'll start with you.
Start with me?
Start with you.
Okay, well, I'm a Capricorn, which is, I feel really honored. I think it's really cool because it's a sea goat, which makes no sense why my symbol is Earth then. Because I'm a goat that lives in water that is an Earth symbol, which is really cool because I get a combination of both, which is, I'm very connected, personally. I find myself, one of the easiest ways for like when I'm meditating or to really connect myself is just by simply walking barefoot into a grassy field per se, or just being really connected to nature. That's something that I find very personal, is a connection with nature. I find it very deep and intuitive for myself. And one of the biggest things about a Capricorn is that they're ambitious. And as you guys are well aware, that is one of my defining factors, is that I'm a highly ambitious person.
Well, for me, I'm a Virgo. The symbol Virgo is the Virgin.
That's awesome.
Basically, of the purest values, basically. High moral ground. My sign is a perfectionist, so everything's got to be done the right way, and always taking the right moral high ground, stuff like that, and always caring about other people, but wanting to push them to get better. And my sign falls between, I think, August 23rd and September 22nd. So my birthday's on September 3rd, so I'm right within that. I'm like right in the middle. And another interesting fact is typically Virgos aren't supposed to be really competitive. And when I found that out, I'm like, well, I'm actually quite competitive myself. So I thought, that they missed on that one. But I dug a little bit deeper, and I actually found out, I did research for Virgos born on September 3rd, and what I found is Virgos born on that day are the most competitive.
Yeah, well, it's because it's just the nature of it. Like, it's very foolish to think that because there's a whole lot of energies that we really just don't understand with our modern science. Whether they, we have a good wavelength on a lot of like stuff that's visible to us in the third dimension. However, there's a whole lot we just don't know. Just to talk about dark matter and dark energy. These are just two very large concepts which take up most of the known universe that we just simply have no knowledge of whatsoever. So I think it's very foolish to think that there's certain energies that happen during natural cycles that don't affect the people born in that sign. I mean, when you want to go into auras and energies and stuff like that, that's a whole other topic, but it's highly related to what we're talking about. Answer?
I mean, you had ambition and strength, I had purity and perfectionism.
And then mine, I'm not really knowledgeable in this kind of stuff, but we researched it right before, and I'm Cancer. It's funny because like the animal for Cancer's it's a crab. It's a crab. Yeah, and it's very contradictory. It's like
Oh.
And it's a very interesting thing, and it's just kind of weird. And then strengths and stuff I found, and weaknesses are very contradictory with Cancer, because I have to look this up.
Take your time. Take your time.
And yeah, it's funny because they're very contradictory. The strengths are loyalty. They're dependable, caring, adaptable, responsive, not responsible. Jesus. And the weaknesses are moody, clingy, self-pitying, oversensitive, and self-absorbed. So, the strengths, weaknesses, it's kind of a weird mashup. It's kind of funny because we kind of had a laugh because I'm reading through this stuff. And it's like, check, 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 moody, check, clingy, check. It's very interesting. And that brings up another interesting thing. You've got the zodiac symbols. You also have all these other fortune or other things that kind of like say you're born this day.
Like the Chinese I Ching.
Yeah, like the Chinese calendar and that kind of stuff that tells you what animal you are and tells you what traits you are. And it's funny to see that because you think that some of that stuff doesn't really govern you, and it doesn't. It doesn't. I'm not saying like this stuff should govern you. It shouldn't tell you how to live your life. I mean, you live your life the way you need to. You have to. you be who you are. But it's just funny to see that, you know, you look at these things and like I was talking about before, you know, you're going down the list, you're like, check, 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 yep, that's me too. You know, it's just a very interesting thing.
Well, think about it. I mean, this is arguably the most ancient form of science.
Yeah.
So I find it very hard to believe that there isn't some level of credibility to this.
Well, think about how all of life falls into patterns. There's always a spectrum for
Cycles.
everything.
Cycles.
Well, even today's science, because like now, like how, and I'm not very knowledgeable in this either, but you know, like what makes a person them? You know, you go into like their environment, how they were raised, the choices they made. You know, all these different environmental factors go into them, and then you have this, which is completely different, but at the same time, it almost nails.
It's kind of like very similar with the argument of genetics. How genetics are saying that's an age-old debate right there. Our nature versus or environment versus genetics. And this kind of, I guess, would fall more in line with the genetic part of it, where it's just these things that are kind of quote unquote set in stone, which arguably, not arguably, they are. Which is a oxymoron in itself right there. But these things, these are not defining factors. Like your genetics are not defining factors of yourself. That's just not how they are. It's a combination of both. It's how you adapt and how you grow into each one of the modes. Like, especially with autism and like Asperger's, we know there's a lot of environmental triggers to these things, where you could have where you could possibly have the genes to have them, but if you're not environmentally triggered, you're not going to have them. That's why it's very, it's like the Buddha taught. It's a middle ground approach. It's a combination of both sides, from here, and you go down, you walk down the path in the middle, and that's what's extremely important to realize. That it's not just one end of the argument. If you're just looking at one spectrum of the things, you're never going to see the whole picture, and you're never really going to accomplish anything. You're going to be able to get somewhere with it, but these branch off into tree branches. Like, think of it as a tree. You're going to go off into a branch, and then you're going to end up in the leaf, and then eventually that leaf falls off. That's just what happens.
I like to think of it as a backyard with a fence. You know, you got your backyard, you know what's there, but what's over the other side of the fence? Let's go see what the neighbors have. You know, you hop that fence, you explore their neighbor's backyard. You play with their pool stuff. Maybe take a few things and hop over to the next neighbor's place. Then when you get caught, you come back to your own house.
I just want to make a side note where we do not condone theft and trespassing on this program. Oh, no, we can't stop you. In fairness, we're just sitting here and you're all doing your life. So in fairness, we really can't stop you from doing this, but we don't condone that. We want you to abide by the golden rule. Do unto others as you want done unto yourself. That is a divine principle.
Yeah, seriously, don't actually hop over like the other to your neighbor's fence unless they invite you. Then go ahead and all that stuff. But no, it's always that idea of like, what's on the other side? Mm-hmm. You know.
Well, see, that's why I think this is one of my favorite analogies, probably to the date of anything I can think of. If you were to put a person, right, just any old regular Joe or Samantha or whatever, and you were to give them, let's say, an acre of land, Joe or Jane, whatever, it's Samantha, it's just names. And you were to give them a house, you were to give them all the supplies they would ever need to live a happy and productive life. But you were walled off in that acre and you could never leave that. Somehow, some way, you're going to find a way to get over that wall and see what's on the other side. That's just basic human nature. We're a species of explorers. We're a species of conquistadors. Everything. We want to know. We have an inherent desire to expand our consciousness, which is why it's so frustrating, especially with today's school systems. With the political systems in place, the economic system, almost all these systems that are in place are meant to drive that down, basically creating a assembly-line thing, which just simply doesn't work. There's been a major revolt, especially within the younger generations, and even within the older generations, to say, this shit's effed up. Plain and simple, it's fucked. We need to do something to move forward with this and move in this direction, because we know inherently within ourselves it's not right. If you're watching this right now, I can make a prediction saying that, hey, you really feel this way too. I'm almost for a fact you, because somehow, someway, the universe has gotten you to watch this. So there's some inkling in for you to have a deeper expansion of knowledge.
I would say for sure that in the quest for enlightenment, it's most likely why you're watching this video right now.
Or you're just bored on YouTube.
That too.
You just could be bored on YouTube.
Or you fell asleep on YouTube.
But there's got to be
just play video after video.
There's got to be a reason.
I've stumbled across some weird shit doing that.
Think about...
Or just the one time I go on your YouTube. What's this popping up now?
Yeah.
Indigo children. What the fuck?
We're 15 minutes in. if they're still watching continuously, there's a reason.
There is.
Or they're asleep.
Yeah. Or they're asleep.
Or
They
they're
could be
asleep. Wake up!
Do we need to pull the plug and neo this shit?
Do we have to go through the candle at this point?
I mean, theoretically, that's possible.
Jump through the fourth
There's
wall?
theoretically possible.
It really is
If I could
possible.
do that, I would just like leave the whole screen and shit. With houses.
Again, we do not encourage breaking and entering, especially through interdimensional travel between video. We discourage that on this
Maybe
program.
one day we'll be able to travel through the internet.
Here's an interesting concept, though. Oh, kind of like in Futurama.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's think about for a moment here that there's an alien race, right? Let's say, just for shits and giggles, they live somewhere in Orion's belt. Their constellations would be incredibly different than our constellations. So you think?
So then, what are their zodiacs, or do they even go by zodiacs?
Do you think? That's
our
that's
astrology
what
is completely geocentric. It's based all off
It would
our
have to
perspective.
be. It would have to be based off of our perspective.
Which makes you think. If there is something out there, and they've kind of established kind of like, not like a government, but kind of like they've banded together and kind of create a network with other like species and whatnot.
Okay,
That kind of stuff.
like a galactic council or whatever bullshit.
Yeah, something
Okay.
like that. You know, what would their, like our star map, like you were saying, it's very geocentric. What would theirs be? Like, would it be like, it can't be geocentric. I mean, they can have their
It
own,
would
like,
be
for
to
their,
theirs, though.
Just
It would be
imagine.
to theirs.
well, I mean, it would be to theirs, but like, as like a whole like universal thing, would they have like a universal kind of like map, so to speak, of the stars? Like, oh, like here in this cluster, and over in this cluster, like, you know.
See, now that's a very interesting prospect. You know who had to answer that question? Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan.
When
Carl
he
Sagan.
did the Voyager 1 probe, it was the first probe to ever leave our solar system, correct?
Yep.
And what they did is he had to figure out how to map, I would say, so this probe is traveling light years, right? How could if an intelligent species find the origin of that probe? So he had to come up with a way to somehow universally star map it to our location. So that's a very interesting concept. Would they have just one? I would feel like that there would be. But I'm
They
talking
stop
about...
at Saturn, turn left at Jupiter, make a random march.
Exactly, yeah. And then it's just a straight shoot.
If you hit the sun, you've gone too far.
If you hit the sun, you got worse issues than going too far.
I've got an interesting concept for you guys to think about. Just a quick thought experiment. It's really philosophical to imagine society almost just like ours, intelligent beings out there somewhere
What
in the
color's your
galaxy.
skin?
It doesn't really matter. It's subjective. Whatever you want it to be. It could be green. It
How
could be
tall are
blue,
they?
purple. Let's say 8 feet tall.
Okay, I can live with that.
All right. So, imagine in this hypothetical society out there that they look up at the stars at night and they map constellations, and in one of those constellations, one of those stars is our sun.
Well, see, that's a very interesting concept. How do we know? Because there's a lot of, if you go into the ufology sciences, which is another science that I was throwing out, which is completely blown, because most of the accepted governments in the world now accept it as a legitimate form of science, too. Except the U.S., of course, which is a whole bunch of reasons for that, trust me. Which is a whole other topic for a
Like
whole
the
other
metric
episode.
system.
Stonecutters. But the Orion constellation, right? This is one that is alleged to have species living in it. It's very well accepted into the ufology community. So that's a very interesting concept that you were just talking about. Would our sun be in one of theirs? Well, who's to say we don't have ours in our constellation doesn't have it in intelligent life already?
Which brings you to the Kepler Space Telescope, which is currently focusing in on a patch of stars and trying to discover exoplanets that might have life.
How many are we? We're discovering hundreds per year almost.
Yeah,
right?
we
It's
are.
ridiculous how much. Because that was one interesting concept. It's like, here's one thing I love about science is anything you put forward, you have to be prepared for it to be totally annihilated and proven false one day. The science isn't about proving things; it's about disproving other things. That's just a really interesting concept of science.
I read an amazing quote the other day that said that scientists basically live on the border between what is known and what is unknown.
Sure.
And as they expand their border, they only
That's
find
for a very
more.
long time. We thought that
Circumference expands.
we thought that the only planets in the whole universe were the planets in our solar system. Which, going off of that too, which is very interesting, which I'm not as factually knowledgeable about this myself, I will readily admit. It's the Moon, Mars, Venus, and Saturn, and Jupiter, and all the other planets also will affect your birth, just in the same way that what sign you're born in, whether it be Capricorn, Cancer, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, whatever it might be.
And that's why every sign, every astrological sign has a ruling planet. Like mine, I don't know about you guys, but I know mine's Mercury,
Really?
the closest one to the sun.
So close to me right now. No, but this is another thing that's just very interesting. All astronomy is, or astrology, pardon me. It was basically they did observations, right? They made note. And this took thousands of years to get all this information, which is very interesting in itself. Which requires a very precise mathematical knowledge and a lot of things that we don't accredit to the ancients.
We don't give the ancients enough credit.
We really don't. We really don't. They were just like you or me. They had any basic knowledge they wanted. Which is very interesting is that I forgot what I was saying. I totally forgot what I was saying. Yeah, totally forgot what I was saying. Here I remember that basically how they got the modern astrology principles is basically it took thousands of years of observation, right? They attributed all of these characteristics, if you will, like being ambitious, being strong-willed, being loyal, being pure, whatever it might be. And this took thousands of years of observation. They were watching the skies and they were noting what these characteristics were in actual individuals. That's something you can't just throw out. All astrology is the repeat of cycles. That's all it is. In this very basic, very purest form, that's really it is studying the perception of cycles, if you will. So that's why you can't just throw that out. You can't just say it's a bullshit science. Yes, I'll be the first one to admit horoscopes aren't readily the most accurate, and a lot of them are just BS, generic information
Just
that you can
for
attribute. Exactly. But there's a whole nother level to this science where it's like this is real scientific observation that's taking place. This is real research that has been done. It's just been done. It was done honestly in a religious sense back then. Not just because it was done in a religious sense doesn't make it any less factual. If you wanted to pursue enlightenment, you have to study everything. You have to pursue Buddha, you have to pursue Jesus, you have to pursue Yahweh, you have to pursue Allah. It's all that. It's not just one approach. It's a very, not even complex, it's very basic and simple. There's all approach to it all.
Well, I would have to say, in my personal opinion, what I'd like to see is a marriage between astronomy and astrology once more, and a divorce between astrology and horoscopes. Because it's really...
You can't have...
Not necessarily.
You wanted to say something earlier.
Well, earlier, we were talking about, stuff coming together, that kind of stuff. The interesting thing, because, we were talking about, the zodiacs and astrology, that when we touched on it earlier, was, that, how do I say this? Well, just thinking properly today, are we?
No.
Not really. The zodiacs, they kind of tell you what kind of person you might be or are going to be and that kind of stuff. And an interesting thing to maybe even think about is with their psychology. Is that something psychologists would eventually take into account? Not
all science has to encompass other sciences. There is no science that is truly divorced from the other sciences. They're all encompassing. Now, what you were talking about a little bit, I want to relate. It's kind of like the ego and the id, which is a Freudian thought. The ego is basically yourself. It's what you think of the ego. It's the thing that pumps you up, right? It's a very inherent psychological attribution, and the id's basically wild desires, right? It's your sexual fantasies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, this is Freudian thought, so this is a little dated, but you can take personality tests. That's the same thing. See,
there's
modern,
plenty of those.
yeah, exactly. There's modern science that are doing the same thing that these ancient astrology symbols do the same principle of. We just have it under a new name and have new standardized tests for it. That's the only difference. There's still these attributes where it's YWB, whatever. You can have a certain type of personality where it's even just as simple as introvert and extrovert. These are all personality things that we have accepted.
Myers-Briggs personality indicators?
Yeah, these are very accepted things of science that we believe with faith and beyond doubt. So why is it so hard to believe that even a majority of the population believes still into this somewhat into this astrological principles? So it's very insulting to call it a pseudoscience when it's just not given the proper nurturing that it once did.
Well, that's why I said what I said about the horoscopes, because I feel like the horoscopes being generally misleading because they're not really as accurate. You know.
Well, it depends on the horoscope.
It makes people be skeptical. It makes people. So I'd like to see people start to maybe, you know, see astrology in its true light and not see it for just, oh, well, it's horoscopes and horoscopes don't mean anything because they're not accurate. It needs to be more.
It's one small part of one very large
and you
science.
Can't. And horoscopes can be accurate. It's just you can't take what they say verbatim. Just like you can't take your horoscope or your zodiac verbatim. You can't. There are some traits that are influenced by your environment, but generally, you look at the big picture and you're like, wow. When you actually zoom out and see everything for what it is, it's pretty accurate. You know? I mean, I know for me there are some little traits in description. I'm like, oh, that's not really.
Well, because you're still individualistic. We still live in a very individualistic society, where we're still very separated from the whole. And that is the whole divorce from Eden thing that the Judeo-Christian Bible talks about, actually, too. We are inherently, as currently our system is, a very individual, consumer-driven society, where we are not connected to the whole. We are not connected to nature. So inherently, when you're reading these very broad concepts, whether it be like with your horoscope or your birth sign or whatever it might be, there is going to be certain inherent where you're an individual. You have your own. You created your own reality. You have your own thing going on. Where these are just very broad concepts. And now, if this was a proper science that was properly funded like all the others, and the research that was actually done over the ancient times, we revisited that and made it into thing. There's a very strong chance, I believe, that this could become way more accurate. It's just not in the sense it is now. No. It's just, if it's not funded, plain and simple, it's not funded. This is left for it's still a very Eastern thing, quote unquote. Still a very even Middle East and Far East thing, where that's kind of where all the science really is nowadays. Now there is still some spiritual hotspots in the Western world. Sedona, Arizona is one place of that. There's a couple places in California, and just throughout the U.S. There's still these spiritual capitals still exist over here in the Western world. And there is research still being done on these things here. It's just nowhere near in comparison to what's being done in the Far East, and that's because it's an ingrained part of their culture and tradition. That they've looked at this thing and they accept it as part of the whole. Whereas in here, there's a divide. There's a portion of our society that actually does look at it as a whole, and then there's a portion of our society that really doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, our society is a highly divided society.
I mean, we're very, you know, technologically driven. We're very science driven. You know, we aspire for great things here in America, but there is a clear divide between that and extreme, you know, spirituality, and the two need to start to come together a little bit more. People see different perspectives, and that's what really makes us human, is being able to have different perspectives, learn from other perspectives, and come together and do great things. You know, we're not all supposed to be like the all-encompassing best person there is. We're supposed to work together. We are each the one, but in a different way, from a different perspective, right?
This is definitely correct. The only thing that makes you and me truly different is our perception. Plain and simple. On a basic fundamental level, we are made of the same energy vibrations. Plain and simple, we are. That is the one, if you will. That is consciousness, if you will. It's whatever you want to call it. It's Yahweh. It's Jesus. It's whatever you want to call it. On a very fundamental level, we are both made of star cells. We are both made of the same energy. But the only difference between you and me right now is our perception. I have a different perception on the same truth that you have. Now, I believe very firmly that there is still only one actual whole truth. But the difference between you and me is our perception.
What are you guys filming, man?
We're just filming a video, man.
What about what?
About really anything we want. Right now we're talking a little bit about astrology and kind of some generic principles.
That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Alright, right now, what are you guys, like college students or what?
Yes.
Alright, where do you guys go to school?
Arizona State.
State?
Yeah.
ASU?
MCC.
Alright, cool, man. Rock on, dude.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Right on. We got a thumbs up approval. We're doing something right here.
Yeah. Doing something right.
Yeah, no,
But I mean, we're nearing the end of the video here, and I think I would like to close off with this. If you're ever really, you know, needing a little bit of validation, sometimes it's not bad to just look up in the stars. You know, maybe you'll discover something. You know.
Humanity has done that since we have existed.
Or, you know, just remember, I think that's important.
It's always an option too. Porn's always an option.
A little less. Yeah, but sure.
That is an option, but then again, I know when I first looked at my zodiac sign that it actually affirmed to me some of my deepest rooted personality traits that I knew subconsciously, but I never knew it consciously, and that brought it out to the conscious, and it made me more aware of who I am.
And that's the thing, is never be afraid to follow your intuition.
Yes.
That is probably one of the most important things you can ever do in your life, is follow your intuition.
If something inspires you...
You know it's right in your heart of hearts. Because that's the thing, in today's society, don't even trust what we're saying on this video. Do not. Please do not. Actually know what feels right for you. Because that's the most important thing, is there's a lot of disinformation and a lot of discredited things going on in our society, especially when you're talking about the pseudosciences, quote-unquote, and other various concepts, especially spiritual concepts and tools. Is that there's a lot of disinformation out there, unfortunately. While you still can always find the truth in everything, because inherently everything comes from the same truth, is you have to know what's right in your heart of hearts. Plain and simple. If it's right in here, it is right. That's all it means. Plain and simple. And then there's inherent rules and laws and everything like that, like the golden rule per se, and basically do no harm to others. These are certain just inherent things that is just natural for creation and everything like that. So as to summarize it, it's just follow honestly what's in your heart. Your heart has more neurons leading to synapses leading to your brain than your brain does to your heart. Your heart is your actual experience of reality. There's a reason why everything comes through your heart, and that's where your intuition really is. It's that gut feeling is in your heart, if you will, and that's what you need to follow.
Those Disney films had it right.
Yes, they did. In some sense, they did.
And I'll leave off to this last word, I guess.
If you want, go for it.
How should I say this? That is one of my strongest beliefs. I kind of still struggle with it today, but simply own yourself. Seriously. I mean, be yourself. And when I say own yourself, it could be, that's a very broad term. I mean, it could mean own yourself from a corporate standpoint, a political standpoint, all these different standpoints. But when it comes down to owning yourself, it's just making sure who you are, what you stand for, and just simply locking your shit down. I mean, what I mean by locking your shit down, trying to think.
I'll tell you this.
Locking your shit down is just, make sure everything's in check. Emotionally, financially, just make sure, you're in balance. Because when you're in balance, when you've locked your shit down, when you own yourself, nothing can really touch you. You're literally like the guy, in the movies or stories, you're just walking down the road, and literally nothing can touch you. Nothing can go wrong. Even if stuff does go wrong, it doesn't even affect you, really. I mean, it may affect your environment, but it doesn't affect you, Just own yourself. I mean, think about that. Just think about that term, owning yourself. I mean, think of your own way of how owning yourself, what it means. Think of your own meaning of owning yourself, what it means to you. I mean, that's part of owning yourself, is figuring out what that means to you. And
just let this video serve as inspiration for you. Let it enlighten you. Let it lift your spirits up, and just create your own reality from this. Take pieces.
And remember to vote me as your next president.
And thanks once again for joining us in Full Circle, guys. We'll see you next time.
Holy crap, we did this without even, going off topic.
We did it, guys.
Even though it's only a second episode.
Nicely done.
Plenty of time to go off topic.
Please like and subscribe.
And don't forget to vote Nathaniel for your next 2016 presidential elect.
I will make a link. I will make a link. People we'll have a poll. We'll see how many people will vote for you to become a nominee.
My entire campaign is based off the concept that I will actually be honest with you, and I will speak the truth as I know it is truly to myself.
Absolutely. And if you want to vote, click here, or there.
Or wherever the actual link is.
Or wherever the hell it is. And
this has been Full Circle, brought to you by Reunion.
I'm Nathaniel.
Jared.
Raven.
Have a wonderful life.
See you next time.